Hey guys, my name is Tito. I make videos on personal finance on my other channel. On this channel, I talk about other things. Like today, when I'll be reviewing the new Netflix series, Far From Home, which was far from perfect, but we'll get into that momentarily. Far From Home is about Ishaya, a young artist looking for a way to move to the UK with his gift as an artist. When he's caught stealing from his employer to enroll in a prestigious school, he has to sell illegal substances to the students of that school in order to pay off his debt or risk losing his life. Now, first of all, this review will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen Far From Home, please go and watch it on Netflix. Everybody has Netflix. Go and watch it, then come back and watch this review. If not, I won't be held responsible for the spoilers you are going to hear. Now, this series, Far From Home, I was kind of looking forward to it. I wasn't particularly keen on it, but I was interested in seeing how Inkblot would handle a multi-episode type of format, because typically Inkblot does movies. So I wanted to see how they'd handle a series. That said, let's talk about the performances in this series, Far From Home. Mike Afolarin. Before I forget, kudos to Mike and kudos to Inkblot as well. Mike did a very good job. His performance was believable and it was energetic and it was dynamic. I appreciated that. And kudos to Inkblot for casting Mike, because typically Inkblot likes to go with A-listers, known faces. And Mike's face isn't that popular, so I imagine they took a bit of a risk with him, and I think it paid off, so kudos to all involved. Mike did a great job, like I said, playing Ishaya, this youth who is all about his art and, just trying to make it out of the ghetto through by any means necessary. And he was very believable in terms of being this desperate young man who is willing to do very crooked things to make it, essentially, right? And the role was a bit physical, particularly in the first 2 episodes where he's doing a bit of running and jumping and all that. And I think he was quite believable, like I said. So kudos to Mike once again. Great job. I hope that this role opens several doors for him. Bucci Franklin plays Government. Interesting name. Bucci is always a very good villain whenever he plays a villain. Kind of like, when he played a villain in Rattlesnake. However, in this series, I think they could have turned it up several notches in terms of his wickedness and him just being a menacing character. Because yes, in the first episode he was scary, but as the series progressed, it felt like the balance of power shifted from him to Bolanle Ninalowo's character in terms of wickedness and just cruelty. Increasingly, Bucci Franklin's character, Government, just became less like a villain and more like a mentor. And I feel like that wasn't entirely necessary. I would have been much more satisfied if he was a scary, menacing character throughout the series. But sadly, like halfway, he starts to look like a mentor to Ishaya, and I don't know if I was too cool with that. Speaking of Bolanle Ninalowo, aka Nino B, let's talk about him next. Nino B was good as Ogarambo. The names on this thing, man, in this series were quite interesting. So, first of all, whenever I see Bolanle Ninalowo in any film or series, I enjoy his performance. He's one of the things I look forward to in that film or in that series, and he did not disappoint in this one. Ogarambo is another, he's a club owner, but also a very nefarious character and a criminal. And as the show progressed, he got more scary, threatening to feed people to his hyena, Angeli or Biangeli. What I'm trying to say is that his performance was very believable. I thoroughly enjoyed it, especially because Bolanle was speaking Yoruba throughout the series. I loved that element of it, and I enjoy Ninobi's performances whenever he's speaking Yoruba. Now, I want to talk about Moshood Fattah. I believe that's his name. Moshood Fattah plays Michael, who was Ishaya's best friend, the mechanic guy who got decked by his colleague Tuesday. So Michael, he was really good. I enjoyed his performance, and I enjoyed his dynamic with Ishaya and Ishaya's sister Rahila, I believe her name was. But he was good. But what I particularly like is the fact that both Mike and Moshood were both they're in this, Far From Home, but they were also in Funke Akindele's new film, which also came out on Friday, Battle on Bucci Street. So Friday, the 16th of December, was a big day for both Mike and Moshood. His performance in that Battle on Bucci Street, which I'm going to review next after this review, was particularly good. I'm going to talk about him a lot in that review, so look out for that. But kudos to him, he did well. Let's talk about some of the women, or maybe just 2 of the women. Elma Mbadiwe Elma plays, was her name Carmen? And she did a good job as this young girl who is very impressionable and who is in a relationship with Olumide Oworu's character, Atlas. And I don't know, I was, even from the beginning to the end of the series, I wasn't too sure how I was meant to feel about Carmen. Was I meant to, hope that she discovers herself and, comes out of this, addiction to substances and wants to do better for her life? Or should I not like her because she seems to be an airhead and she seems to keep making bad decisions, like, tagging along with Atlas all the time? So I was a bit confused. I didn't know where to place her or how I should feel about that particular character. Regardless, Elma is a great actress and she did a good job. I just feel like if that character was a bit more defined, I would have enjoyed the performance better. Bubemi Ejeye, she played Adufe. She was initially Ishaya's girlfriend, but when they broke up, she became Rambo's girlfriend. And I think Bubemi did an interesting job being like a go-between between Rambo and what's his name and government and Mike Afolarin's character Ishaya. So her performance, I didn't like the character, but I liked the performance. Yes. And I think this role as well will open several doors for Bubemi. Kudos to her. And I enjoyed her speaking Yoruba too, especially in the scenes that she shared with Nino B. What I liked the scenes that they filmed in Isaleko. It's not easy to film things in Lagos Island, and I like that they accomplished that and they showed a range, or they showed enough of Lagos Island. It looked gritty, it looked realistic, so I liked that. I liked the set design and the set pieces in many of the scenes, like Ishaya's family home. I liked that it was spacious, it looked authentic, and it looked lived in. I also liked Michael's flat, where Ishaya was doing most of his drawings and hanging out for most of the series until Michael kicked him out. I like how they used Lagos Business School, which is the school that they staged as Wilmer Academy, right? And they used a lot of that school. They didn't limit themselves to like a section of the premises or of the building. They used, if you know Lagos Business School, you know that they used almost every inch of that premises and of that school. I like how they had like kind of almost free reign with the premises and with the buildings at LBS. What else did I like? The costuming was also good. Shout out to Yolanda Okereke on that. She was the costume designer. The production generally, aesthetically, it was pleasing to the eye, right? We were seeing dynamic things. We were seeing new things. Even like LBS. I don't think I've seen LBS in a movie before. And the images were just clean, essentially. And we saw creative things, particularly in episode 1 and 2, like in the flashback sequences. And I think in episode, was it 2 or 3? Where Ishaya, where he was like under the influence, he popped one of the pills and he was losing it. So the production generally, aesthetically, kudos to them. I really enjoyed it. Shout out to the directors, Catherine Stewart, Kayode Kasum, and Kenneth Gyang. What I didn't like. First of all, there seemed to be too many convenient occurrences in this series, particularly with Adufe's character. She just kept on showing up. In fact, forget about her just showing up randomly at opportune times. Her meteoric rise from being Ishaya's girlfriend to becoming Rambo's babe and having so much power was very questionable. It happened rather suddenly, and it just wasn't making sense at several points, because Ishaya didn't even break up with her. She just vexed and left him. Next thing you know, she gets with Rambo. She's his babe. Rambo starts giving her all this power and influence in his organization. It happened rather suddenly, and it just seemed very convenient. But the most convenient thing that happened, particularly with Adufe in this series, is how in episode 3, when they're about to feed Ishaya to the hyena, Adufe shows up and says, no, let's give him a second chance. Just like that. Not to mention that Rambo was really insistent in episode 1 and 2 to feed Ishaya to this hyena. It's about to happen now, and Adufe shows up all of a sudden, broad daylight, and says, no, let's give him a second chance, and he changes his mind. It seemed rather too convenient, if you ask me, and that's just one of several instances. Another thing is that in this series, things felt very unoriginal. There are lots of cliches and lots of stereotypes, but I think at the end of the day, I struggled to find originality in this series. Let me explain. I mean, Elma's character, Carmen, the it girl in school, who is dating the bad boy, who is sleeping with Carmen's best friend. It felt like something I've seen several times before. What else? There was like a ball or a dinner in the thing. And then there was Genoveva, Umeh's character, who was like the social media obsessed girl. There were so many cliches and stereotypes in this thing that it made me struggle to find the originality. At a point, I think in episode 3, I was like, come, what exactly about this show is particularly original that I haven't seen 1,000 times before in American shows? So I really struggled with that. And in fact, please, I'm ready to be proven wrong. If you saw anything that was particularly original about this series, let me know in the comment section, because left to me, I think pretty much everything in this series I've seen 1,000 times before in American shows. Finally, I didn't like the fact that certain things were just implausible. They really didn't make sense. And I can do a whole other video on the things that I felt were implausible on this series. I'm sorry, guys. But this is a me thing, right? The show was good. Let's not discount everything I've said prior to now. But for me, these are the things I noticed on this show that rubbed me the wrong way. Coming back to the implausible things that happened. Let's start with the 150k that Ishaya stole from government, that made government and Rambo leave their multi-million naira business and go and chase their bartender employee to his house over 150,000 naira. That seemed like a job for one of the boys to go and do, not the owners of the establishment. 150k? Seriously? It wasn't gelling. So there was that. Secondly, the whole transcript issue. When, Ishaya he's trying to get admission, he needs to produce his certificate or transcript. He forges that, but they need to do a background check, right? Saying that this whole scholarship thing was actually a ruse and they wanted Femi Branch's son to actually pass the exam and get the scholarship. You would think that the principal and the school would really do a thorough background check in order to disqualify Ishaya, because they didn't want Ishaya to win the scholarship in the first place. So they should have done a thorough background check on him. They should have called the school and made sure that he was who he said he was and he got the grades he said he got. But not just that. You can't give, in that kind of school, you don't give somebody a scholarship and not meet their parents or their guardians, because they gave this guy the admission or the scholarship or whatever without meeting his parents. Another thing, I told you I could do a whole other video on the things I found implausible in this thing. When Frank was kidnapped, right? Frank was kidnapped by Bado and Adufe, and what's his name was an accomplice. Ishaya was an accomplice, right? Eventually, they pay a ransom, 20 million. But eventually, later on in the series, Mike's character Ishaya confesses to the kidnapping and the selling of the narcotics and all that. But still, Frank says that this guy who was an accessory to his kidnap and his family, they should come and live with him so that Rambo doesn't catch them. As in, this chap organized who was an accessory to your kidnapping. Your mother paid 20 million naira for you to be freed. Yet you are offering that him and his family should come and stay with you. In what world does that happen? For goodness sake, that did not sit right with me at all. Finally, the last one I'll give you two. When the operation happened in the school and then the police come into the school, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't I see the police park or stop right in front of, Rambo's car, suggesting that, they caught them? So why do we now see them later on, getting away, or going back to their hideout? The final thing is, once again, Frank confesses to everything. The narcotics, the conspiracy to abduct a fellow student, and the theft, and even the forgery to get into the school, right? He confessed to it all. Why, for goodness sake, was Ishaya still walking around as a free man in the final episode? He confessed to a number of crimes, yet he wasn't behind bars. Yet he was still in contention for the grant from Deyemi's character in the UK and all that, even though he didn't get it, but he was still in consideration for it. Why? This guy confessed to some serious crimes. Why was he still a free man? I mean, I needed explanations to these things, particularly that last one. So because of these very implausible issues, and because of, you know, the convenient occurrences like Adufe showing up at several points in the series, and then what was the other one? Because of the cliches and the unoriginality of it all, yeah, there are several things about this thing that made me endure the show rather than enjoy it. In conclusion, guys, I know many of you enjoyed Far From Home. Don't get me wrong, it was a good one. But for me personally, there were just too many loose ends and there were too many question marks. And when I'm watching something, if there are too many question marks, if I ask the question, make it make sense too many times, it compromises the experience for me. So that's kind of how this show went for me. But regardless, kudos to all involved. The young stars in the series, kudos to all of them. I mean, Mike, Olumide, Elma, Genoveva, and Moshood. Kudos to the cast, right? And kudos to Inkblot. I think this is the best thing I've seen from Inkblot Studios in 2022. Kudos to the directors of the series as well. It was a good one, but for me personally and my weird tastes, for lack of a better term, it wasn't really cutting it for me. Like I said, I endured this show. Left to me in episode 3, when Rahila and Frank meet each other in the library, they bump into each other and, you know, one of them drops a book and another one picks a book. I paused it. I rolled my eyes so hard. I knew what was coming next. They'd say something silly like, oh, I've read this book several times, you'll enjoy it. And then the sparks would fly. Well, the cliches. Anyway, let me not go down that road again. At that point in the series, I was ready to just end it and just watch the final episode, or the last 10 or 15 minutes of the final episode. I was pretty much done. But because I knew I had to come here and tell you guys how I felt about this series, I endured the entire series. Yes. Don't hold it against me. I'm weird like that. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for enduring this review. If you enjoyed it, please like it by clicking on the like button just underneath the video, and subscribe to my channel as well by clicking on the black subscribe button. On this channel, I don't just do Nollywood movie reviews, I also talk about relationships. So check out some of my past relationship videos. You can click the card in the corner of the screen. Now, I've had a bit of a crummy week, to be honest. You can't tell by all the smiling and laughing, but my week has been a bit funny. So in order to make my day, please click on that like button. It would really warm my heart to see lots of likes on this video. You can also feel free to check out my review of my top worst Nollywood movies of 2022. That's out, but now I'm going to change my shirt and I'm going to film my review of Battle on Bukka Street, like I said earlier in the video. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, or enduring it, as the case may be. No offense to the parties involved. You can tell that I did enjoy aspects of this series, Far From Home, but there are just certain aspects that I just couldn't wrap my mind around, or wrap my brain around. Forgive me. Thank you guys once again for watching. I will catch you in the next one. Take care.